Hello and welcome to MLS Matters, hosted by CMLS. We appreciate you taking your time today to be part of the community, part of the conversation, and most importantly, part of the solution. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted to the CMLS resource page along with a summary of the notes. You will also find the previous recordings of our last few webinars, as well as those summary pages. We encourage sharing, so please, if you want to send those out anywhere, please do. And today we are using Zoom so that all of you are able to talk and share. And but with that, you're all muted on entry, and so that if you do want to talk, you just pay attention. You'll need to take that off, but we ask that you keep the mute on if you are not speaking. I do want to acknowledge that CMLS has enacted all Zoom recommended safety protocols. And hello, my name is Danae Evans. I am the CEO of CMLS, and this has become one of the highlights of my week, is getting to see so many faces lined up on there, and the smiles. As much as I prefer in person, this has just been a real treat. And so I appreciate you all for participating and joining us. With that, I think today we're just going to jump right in and start talking about our topic. And I'm really excited to have our three panelists with us today, share some different perspectives and insights of what they have done to make the market work virtually where they are and what part they play within the industry. And just want to start and make sure that before we jump into this, I want to say that this conversation is all done under the umbrella of making sure that 100% everything that's said today is under the umbrella of following all local, state ordinances, laws, everything to keep people safe. It is responsible real estate. It's just how can we help facilitate a market in our current environment, following CDC recommendations, all of those things. So that is where we start from. So what I'd like to do is kick it off with having each of our panelists, and I'm kind of throwing this one out on them, if they do a brief introduction of themselves and then tell me what their top quarantine guilty pleasure or favorite activity has become over the last couple of weeks. I feel like we could all use maybe some ideas or some creativity. So Deanna, you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your name, quick organization info, and then your favorite quarantine activity so far.
Okay, happy Friday, everyone. My name is Deanna Hall. I am the CEO of Beaches MLS. I'm also the CEO of the Broward Palm Beaches and St. Lucie Realtors. Our MLS is owned by the association. We have about 35,000 subscribers here in South Florida. And, you know, probably one of the best things that I've been able to do since being in quarantine is, step away from my computer and make my kids lunch every day and spend a few moments with them before I go back into the cave of working again. So, and then obviously that after hours cocktail every night definitely helps kind of, smooth things out for the next day.
Love it. Thank you. Art.
Hello, my name is Art Carter. I'm the CEO of the California Regional Multiple Listing Service, and that's it. No other associations or anything along those lines. My guilty pleasures really have been, I've been trying to do a couple of different things. My guilty pleasures are binging shows on Netflix that I really probably would have no desire watching if I wasn't stuck with a whole bunch of extra time, like Tiger King and Narcos and Ozark are things that I would have watched anyways, but those are kind of my guilty pleasures, and I'm kind of forcing myself back into learning guitar and learning Spanish. So trying to at least do some productive things through this opportunity.
I like that. Are the rest of the people in the household appreciating your guitar playing? Is it that level?
I'm not bad, but
okay.
I'm definitely not ready to conduct concerts. So.
You're not going to be a guest musician on next week's webinar?
No. Victor Lund will not be inviting me to the next MLS band.
Okay. All right. And then Malti, if you do an introduction of yourself or your company and your favorite activity.
Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Malti. I'm the founder and CEO of Luxury Presence. I've been a tech entrepreneur for the last 8 years. This is my second company and have been in the real estate space the last 4 years. Founded Luxury Presence to serve real estate agents and teams. We now work with about 1,200 agents all across the country. We're the official partner to several national brokerages for agent and property websites, as well as marketing services. And we're focused on the luxury market, but also work with mid-market agents more and more now. And quick kind of background on the company is we bootstrapped the business the first 2.5 years and then raised a seed round and then very recently a $5 million Series A from VC. So I have the perspective of both early stage bootstrapping a company into space and then raising capital from VCs. And my guilty pleasure would be sitting out in the backyard with our dogs and doing some work there. Usually I try to get an hour in the sun. It's one of the nice things about living in Los Angeles that I try to take advantage of.
Fabulous. And the one interesting piece about Malti that I met him about 18 months ago, he was a college basketball superstar. So those of you that know me know I love basketball. So that was a fun thing we got to talk about and share. He actually wrote a book that I bought for my daughter. Tell me the name of it. It's on her. She actually just got it out and read it during quarantine again.
That makes me so happy to hear. It's Play for Something is the name of the book.
Great book. We've talked about it as a family. So anyways, another reading recommendation. Okay, so let's kick it off here with, I'll put this first one at Art or Deanna. If you could tell me what is we've gotten our offices and our staffs working remotely and virtually, and now it's time we're jumping into making sure how we're supporting our members in the marketplace to work virtually. So tell me what's the most important things, the most important changes you've made over the last 3 to 4 weeks, and how you've transitioned your MLS to support this virtual marketplace. So Deanna or Art, one of the two of you start us off with that.
Go ahead, Deanna.
Okay. First, I think it was making sure that we were in the mindset of going into this new virtual world. Our organization made sure that we kind of embraced that this was our new normal. And by doing that, that allowed us to really kind of fully embrace all the concepts that need to happen in order for us to be virtual. It wasn't like, we're going to be doing this for a couple weeks and so we can, postpone this or do a stopgap measure. It was, these are the things that we do at our organization, and we're going to make sure that we can still continue to do them virtually. And so, one of the key things that our organization is making sure that we were still running a really highly productive customer service front line. One of the things that I think we did unique was we split up our customer service front line into 3 groups based on what their strengths were. We also took into account what their home dynamic was. So if they had kids at home, we made sure that they were doing something that wasn't picking up the phone, but maybe they did like virtual chat to be able to seamlessly be able to answer the member, but not have to worry about, there being maybe noise in the background. And that's really helped us maintain a really high customer service support level. After we got our customer service in line, the first thing really kind of centered around making sure we had the programming done for a virtual open house field. We have 2 great partners. Both of them are the MLS vendors for Flex and CoreLogic, and they were able to turn around that programming for us fairly quickly. Originally, Flex said it was going to take them about 2 weeks to do the programming, and they put their top programmers on, basically day and night work for us all through the weekend, and they produced that within 4 days. Our CoreLogic group was able to easily get that field up for us as well. This was really important that we had this virtual open house field done in such a quick amount of time, because we were also disabling the live open house field. And we know that one of the worst things to do is really take things away from our members, especially at this time. So being able to change out those 2 fields and really market the wonderful things that still a virtual open house field can do for them was, I think, important, making sure that they still had some level of service that they were giving their clients. And so once we had that field up and running, we were able to do some different programs that all centered around that field. One of the things that we have just sent out an email to our members about was this virtual open house week. Our group is used to doing a virtual open house once a quarter, or actually not virtual, but a live open house every quarter. And so this one is just taking it virtual. And so what you're going to see up on your screen right now is kind of the components of what our virtual open house week looks like. This virtual open house, before we get to what's on your screen, it includes a search page for consumers. It also has an information page for realtors on how to do this. We're running local ads and we're doing things on social media. And then also making sure that we get our community partners involved in this. There's a number of graphics that are also created. So going back, Kelly, if you can go back to that slide that you first were at, this is the email that we sent out to members yesterday. And it simply walks them through how to do this. We've been advertising now for about 2 weeks on how to successfully use a virtual open house field. So hopefully they have that under their belt, and now they're kind of ready for this next step, which is first they're going to set up their live virtual stream. And we give them a number of different ways for them to learn how to do that if they are not used to setting up this link or a URL. Next, they're going to schedule a virtual open house. And again, there is a tutorial under there for helpful resources based on what MLS they are using, whether Flex or Matrix. They then go into marketing their virtual open house. And we've created a number of different graphics for them to use any way that they would like. We also are using Photify, so they can use that for their social media sites on promoting virtual open house week. And we have put together CDC guidelines if they are going to be doing any showings in person still for them to follow. And then finally, there's going to be an opportunity for us to syndicate this virtual open house website. And so Kelly, if you'll go to the next slide, this is how our consumer site looks, just very clean and easy to follow for all of our members to use. So that is really the first program that we've put in place. We think that, I think we've been reading a lot how there are more consumers than ever who are looking at homes. And so this is really a great time to capitalize on that, that there's so many people, eyeballs really kind of, looking for something to do and kind of searching for maybe what's going to be their next home. The other thing we did was we created a virtual marketing madness. That's a weekly program that's really successful in some of our marketplaces. Some of our smaller marketplaces see over 100 people every single week gathering at this event. So we wanted to make sure that we could still offer something, even though they could not be doing this in person. So what we did was we set up a Facebook group. We had a moderator do a pre-recording that was kind of a kicking off the event, telling them the rules of engagement. And then our members did a 2-minute recording that was pitching their properties. They uploaded the video the day of the Marketing Madness tour. And then they were able to interact via Facebook through liking each other's tours and kind of, asking them questions through the Facebook group. So those are 2 programs that, are hot off the press, and our members are really kind of enjoying being able to still have a level of engagement, even though they might be in quarantine.
I like it. Some exciting stuff. And just, it's stuff you were doing before. It's just approaching it differently. So I love just getting after that and providing those other solutions. Art, love to hear how you're talking about it. You and I talked a little earlier this week, and we got a little bit more on the technical side of how you were doing it. So love to hear some of that, but also just overall the programs that you're doing and what that looks like. And we grabbed a screenshot of this MLS page and some of the things that you're doing there. I didn't tell you that, but we grabbed that.
No, that's totally fine. I was kind of feeling bad that I didn't have pretty slides like that.
We got it.
So thank you for filling that in for me. We took more of a first step of trying to take a holistic approach to what's going on in the marketplace. And, statistically, it's because California and our footprint is so large. It's been very difficult keeping all of our brokers and agents on the same page and putting policy together that will adhere to all of those different jurisdictions and how they're handling this quarantine and stay at home, shelter in place, depending on which county you're talking about all the different orders. And every county has a different level of that. So it has been a lot of hoops for us to jump through. A lot of it has really just been communicating. And really we took one of those foundational steps and And I know that there's been a lot of talk about it, but that one of the foundational steps was, how are we going to view the marketplace? And we were going to view the marketplace as not a normal marketplace, but a marketplace that was going through an extraordinary event, but that we still needed to count days on market. And that foundational decision was something that kind of spread out into the rest of what it is that we were doing. And really allowing, listening to the seller's concerns about their properties, and allowing people to kind of go into an open house situation or a showing, whether or not it was virtual or how those things would occur. We spent a lot of time and effort in going through and how we would do that. And basically, there's this desire for a virtual showing, there's a desire for a virtual open house. And the primary platforms that we deliver, we have relationships with Black Knight for the Paragon system, with FBS for Flex, and with CoreLogic for Matrix. And basically, from a virtual showing standpoint, we've relied on some of our outside vendors to, handle those pieces of it, because we still want to, give the buyer's agent the ability to keep involved in the process and not have those virtual showings show up on some of the internal information that is shown and syndicated out to all of the different websites. So kind of focused on the virtual open houses. We were able internally to turn around in 2 days the addition of those fields into our primary backend. And as Deanna talked about, CoreLogic, FBS, and Black Knight were fairly quick in getting all of those elements up and running and back into the system for people to fill out. It has been an educational process. I think people are a little bit confused as to the difference in between a virtual tour and a virtual open house, and we're still working through those explanations. We have for this weekend about 100 virtual open houses available to our consumers. We've been working with the Realtor.coms and the Zillows of the world to make sure that our brokers and our agents have the ability to shoot that information out to them, out to the consuming public in a way that would make sense to them as well. So kind of been rolling that out from a syndication standpoint. We're taking a measured approach with it and really kind of working with these primary websites that a lot of the consumers are relying upon to make sure that not only do brokers and agents understand the differences in between virtual showings, virtual open houses, virtual tours, but also that the consumer is getting that information displayed to them at the end of the day in a way that it makes sense to them as well. The last thing that you want, especially in some of our jurisdictions, it has been a flat, hard no that there is nobody to be entering into a house to show a property, to conduct a virtual open house, to conduct a virtual showing. And some jurisdictions are a little bit softer on that. So, we've had to kind of, make sure that the partners that we have out on the syndication side are displaying that information in a way that doesn't cause a consumer to walk up to a house expecting something that they're not capable of getting.
Excellent. And I've got a few extra questions on that, but I wanted to jump over to Malti. Your company does agent and team websites, and you really specialize on showcasing properties virtually. So you've been doing this for a while. How are you showing off? There's just a lot of engagement more in an online or virtual way. And so I asked you on today so that you could maybe help share or just give the added perspective in this space that you've already been in. What are the key things that you do or more your customers are doing to market their homes online or virtually, or what are the key elements? And positioning this is how can MLSs support this, or what does it look like? You don't have to answer that exactly how MLSs support it, but just the perspective of what really makes an online presence of these homes what separates them, what makes them great and really more engaging to the consumer?
Yeah, so I feel in some ways we've gotten a head start on the current situation because we've been working with luxury agents for the last few years, and their needs have always been to create an experience for each home. And so the way that they're looking at each property and how they showcase it on their agent website, or if they do a standalone property website, in my experience, they think of it as creating a destination that is worthwhile for people to come to. And so the visual part of that and becomes really important. And for our clients, that we're now seeing a lot more mid-market agents taking that same mindset because it's the best place for them to market homes. And so those same principles that the luxury agents have been using for quite some time now I think apply to the broader agent population as well. And specifically the things that we're doing for them and that are frequently requested would be for every property, they have a property page on their agent site, and they usually always want to have high resolution photos. And then again, create an experience on that page. And embedding videos is big. Usually it's YouTube or Vimeo links, embedded virtual tours. We're seeing a huge increase in demand for that. And we actually accelerated the development timeline for getting out a couple more functionalities on that in our product. And then agents even like to do things like adding their own quotes about a property and laying those out with image grids, getting creative with design. And then quite frequently we see them adding, we have a download component where they can add PDFs for brochures, floor plans, and those kind of items. And usually the way that they judge the success, or if they like the product, is if they feel like if they're browsing through the page, they're getting a comprehensive feel of that property, not just the basic data points.
When you said it's a difference of, and it's an experience, will you tell me just a little bit, like, what does that mean? How am I getting an experience?
Yeah.
Versus like AI, I'm not going to put on the goggles quite yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're trying to get as close to a real impression of what the property would be like in real life. And the closest we can get to is high resolution, full screen imagery. The next step is video. The step after that is virtual tour. And the step after that is putting your goggles on. And so we're trying to get as close to that as possible. And I think historically, the way properties have been presented has been very focused on just the data points. And those are important, but during this time, what we're seeing is agents they want to add those visual elements, and they feel that that is really important.
Okay, so then if I can come back and Malte, you might jump in on this. It could be a question for both. Art, you mentioned differentiating between virtual showings and on demand, so like a live open house versus a pre-recorded. You're trying to define, definitions of that. And Malte, I imagine that's something you've already been dealing with. So maybe hearing from each of you on how you're addressing that. Obviously, Deanna, yours is very clear. We have open house week starting April 21st. So any thoughts on that? I'd love to hear some descriptions and thoughts.
I'll tell you that there's been a large level of confusion with our agents as to what the differences are. And so one of the things, and I'm sure Deanna can say the same thing, is that we're going down the road of limiting the URLs that can be input into these fields, just so people have an understanding long term. A lot of agents haven't thought virtual before, and I'm sure that both the other panelists will kind of agree with that. They haven't really had to, and in this new environment, they're kind of struggling as to how they set these things up. And we're struggling as to how to assist them in giving them the right tools and the right information. And there is a section on our website that we're referring people back to. But we've had to start going down the road of limiting the URLs that are going in and stopping people from posting virtual tours as opposed to time-bound virtual showings and virtual open houses.
Art, will you talk to how you separated those and how you're identifying when to put them and where?
So we've always had the virtual tour fields. We've had a couple virtual tour fields that are allowed to be branded. We've had an unbranded virtual tour field to allow people to send information out that'll hit the third-party websites and the IDX websites. That's always been there, and people have kind of, over a period of time, kind of understood what it is that they're required to do along those lines. But when you throw those virtual showings and virtual open houses in there, people are still a little bit, kind of curious as to how do I conduct one of these? Can I just put a Matterport or one of my virtual tour companies links in there? And, before we had the fields in place, we probably added a little bit to the confusion that we were allowing to put some of those links directly into the property description. And we worked with the big portals to allow those to come across. But now that we have the fields in place, we're just trying to, as much as we possibly can, communicate with people what the differences are.
Yeah, Danae, one of the things that we are going to be implementing is, well, first of all, I think having the option for them to choose between the fields hopefully tips them off on the fact that these things are different. So for instance, like the 3D tours, we're going to be creating that field as well. So they kind of see like, okay, there's differentiation between what all these things are.
Malti, what have your customers done in the past, or how are they using it? And as part of that, what have their requests been to you? Have they changed? Are they asking for different things today? How are they changing to this environment?
Yeah, so in the past, it's been on-demand embedded virtual tours, and majority of agents are using Matterport for that. So we've always had that component, or we've had that for a while. And I'd say there's been definitely an increase in demand for this component. We're seeing more and more agents use it. The thing that's new that clients have brought up, which is interesting, is including call to actions on their sites for scheduling live showings. The way they're doing these live showings, from what I can see currently, they're using live video and social media primarily. I see a lot of agents doing that on Facebook and Instagram, but they want the ability to capture leads on their sites. And we've actually, we're now have put it on the roadmap to build out a feature on their site that would allow an agent to do live showings on their websites. So there's been, and that demand is new, that didn't exist before. So those conversations have happened in the last few weeks.
Great. Can we talk a little bit about these? I think Art and Deanna, where are you seeing the changes that you're making to meet these needs? Which ones are short-term fixes, Band-Aids, versus how are you thinking about what are these actually long-term changes? How are you navigating that and positioning to meet the needs today, but is it something you're peeling back or looking at adding permanently?
Well, for us, we are always engaging our subscribers and our members. And because we do cover a very large area, 120 miles of coastline, it's difficult sometimes, obviously, for everybody to drive to one place, and conference calls, have their issues of people not feeling connected or really kind of sharing ideas. So using these new virtual options such as Zoom really has allowed a lot more participation and a lot of different things. We also find that that people are sharing their ideas more than they would on a conference call, but they're also much more succinct meetings and they're not taking as much time. So I think that there's going to be maybe a lot more people who are very active in the marketplace that couldn't give us the time because they couldn't drive there, or because they thought that the meetings kind of, went a little long, that maybe they would be interested in participating because it is so easy to kind of just tap into a meeting like this and contribute and then, go on with their day.
From our standpoint, the changes we've made from a field level will be permanent. And long-term, the consumer will determine, Multi and other vendors are going to be informative of of where, you know, those changes go long term. And, you know, is this a new normal for the consumer? Are they going to get used to the ability to have those opportunities to go directly to a house virtually, you know, from the comfort of their home as a first step? I don't know. Those things, you know, long term we'll have to figure out. You know, Deanna's talking about some of the virtual meetings. We've pleasantly been surprised that we're getting in front of more people virtually than we ever would have, especially with our CCP rollout. We're getting in front of more people virtually than we would have in-person meetings. So that's great. I think long-term, what we're really ramping, you know, all of our brokers and agents up to is not only to have those in-person meetings, but be broadcasting those meetings in a virtual sense to where those that can physically attend will physically attend, and those that want to virtually attend will be able to virtually attend the same meeting.
Yeah, I think another thing that you know, everybody probably has been able to do is also give a lot more virtual resources when it comes to like webinars and education. You know, if we did have webinars in our virtual libraries, maybe they were a little bit old or they weren't very engaging. But now that we only have that to rely on, we're recording so much more content. We're doing it in different languages. You know, really the sky's the limit on what we can do. We're using different staff members and different members to record these on the things that they have expertise on. So it's really grown our virtual library and made it, you know, thriving. So, and we're also kind of giving orientations a new feel as well. So we'll see if that kind of stays around after the fact. But, you know, we know that these brokers that participate in these different marketplaces, you know, if you're asking them to attend that orientation, it's really hard on them. So being able to have a virtual option for them is really key.
Just jumping in, just I would absolutely echo that from what I'm seeing. I think there are agents that we've worked with for the last 3 years that were very hesitant to embrace anything on the technology front, that I'm now seeing hosting webinars and doing things that they were not doing before. So I think this will accelerate a lot of the technology adoption. And I mean, depends on how long this lasts, but I think there's a good chance that this permanently alters how the consumer goes about searching for homes and the entire transaction, and that agents do the same. And since that's already happening, we're only 3-4 weeks in. If I fast forward 2 months, I have to believe that there is going to be some permanence to this.
You know, today I also think this really opens up our global marketplace. You know, obviously there's going to still be local consumers who like their traditional showing, but that a lot of times is not an option for people who are international that would like to buy. So I think that now that we have all these different options built out for them and meaningful resources, I think that there's going to be a lot more international business that's going to be able to make, you know, better decisions with the virtual resources that they can look at.
Very interesting. Hadn't thought of that. Malti, I had one question for you about, you know, if this does become the new normal, what you were talking about, Art had mentioned it as well. What is a couple of things right now, if you had your wish list of how MLSs could support powering what you're doing, that experience? If it becomes more and more that agents are creating that, not just luxury agents, give us, you know, two wish list, or it could make it easier. I think you had a quote I wrote down the other day, easier is happier in regard to agents.
Yeah. So I think our wish list is always reflective of the wish list of our clients. So at the end of the day, if we can make them happier and their lives easier, then we're doing our job and our business benefits. So that's how I'm thinking about this wish list. And one thing that we hear pretty consistently is that additional step of having to go in and enter additional data in our system, uploading photos twice and doing that extra work is something that agents would love to not have to do. So that would be high up on the list, just the ability to get those data points from the MLSs and ideally consistently across the country. So from our perspective, one of the challenges is if something exists with one MLS and we are able to get that data in and make it work, for us to roll this out to all of our clients, we have to be able to deliver across the country. Otherwise, we can't really do any product launch around it. And so that's a challenge, and that would be on my wish list as well, and would help us support our clients and agents better. So I think in the past, it's been the trade-off for agents has been between convenience and quality, and definitely in the high end, they're picking quality and they're willing to do that extra work. But if we can add convenience, I think that would be very beneficial. And then just one other thing that we hear over and over is one of the reasons why they go in and upload their photos is because they really don't like the watermarks on the photos we get from the MLS, and just passing that along. That's been very consistent. Almost every agent mentions that to us.
You mentioned that about the standard of how it's done across, and I think that is obviously something we hear regularly about, because there's might be 500 and something of MLSs, but I think if we can address this as the industry, as MLSs, and work to have consistency as we develop these things and roll it out. And one of the questions that came in the chat box here is there a place that we might have standardized definitions of all virtual, so MLSs are on the same page? Like, we can just start with what the definitions are, whereas right now we're kind of going, you know, all the work that Rezo's done on standardizing and whatnot, you know, we could maybe start from the other place. So I'll throw that out there, and I think we'll have to examine that question a little bit further. Suzanne, thank you for putting that in. I think I want to finish up here. We've got just a couple of minutes before we're going to go into our roundtables, but I'd love to cover and talk about a little bit. We had some questions come in too about how I don't think you'll have answers for this, Malti, but Art and Deanna, of like, how are you approaching compliance in this environment? We had talked about the URLs and how, and even some policies and some statuses. I've seen some of the questions from our broker webinar a few weeks ago. How are you addressing that? How are you helping to support your members? When are you being flexible and lenient? Where are you not being? What's advice you would give to your peers and colleagues on how you're approaching this?
Art, you might be more interesting than us, but we thought that the compliance issues were going to just go through the roof through all of this. We really haven't seen that. They haven't really gone down either. Everything has really just kind of stayed status quo. Maybe that's because there's obviously not as many new listings coming on the marketplace right now, or people are concerned with other things, but we really haven't seen an uptick or decrease in compliance at this time.
So we did. We had real estate was determined to be a non-essential service in California for a period of a little over a week. And it appears to us that our agents decided that they were going to use that week to go through the database and find every violation they possibly could and report it to us. So we literally had a doubling of our violations in that week time frame. The Department of Homeland Services redefined their list and included real estate to the point where in California it was relaxed a little bit, and those really have dropped off significantly since then. We're trying to be a little bit kinder and gentler when it comes to the virtual open house and the virtual showings. We are not going to fine anybody for that. It was such a quick rollout trying to address a market condition that there really was no opportunity to communicate it in the way that we normally do. And so we're not gonna do anything from a fining standpoint. We do go through the database. I know the question was asked. We go through the database. It's not all that difficult once you know what URLs that we're accepting on the virtual open house side. It's not that difficult to go through and pick out all of those that are not fitting that mold and pulling them out of the system and notifying the brokers and agents who have input them in of those situations. Our regular, fining situation where we are trying to be a little bit more lenient. That being said, one of the bedrocks of a multiple listing service is an adherence to the rules and regulations. And we still have to make sure that brokers and agents are doing that. Our board of directors has just said, let's be a little bit kinder and gentler during this time frame instead of the regular processes that we always had in place.
Great. Couple of questions we had come in, if I could do it. Malti, one question was, what programs do you use for your floor plans or listings? Do you have your own native app?
We don't have our own native app, and currently we solve it with just an upload download for PDFs, since that can be applied across the board. What we've seen is just the tools that are out there. There's agents use different ones, and for us to build these integrations out would be a lot of heavy lifting. And so most agents just use our download component in order to make PDFs available on those property pages.
Great. And then Deanna, you mentioned your virtual marketing madness. So we'd like a little more info on that program. We talked a little bit about it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so Marketing Madness is really just your traditional way that, you know, realtors used to kind of network and talk about their properties. And what we did was we used Facebook groups because we felt that that was the best way it was a tool that everybody pretty much had access to, and it was an easy way for them to interact with each other. It was also very easy for us to be able to post things to the top of the page as, you know, key reminders of how they could kind of work through this process or what to do. So that's why we decided to choose that platform for this. We always make sure we keep it the same date and time as it's been in the past, so they, you know, have that down as when they're supposed to tune into their Facebook group. And then we have the moderator that, you know, was doing the moderating, which is a member, record basically an intro of the rules of engagement for everyone and how they're going to basically interact with each other in the Facebook groups. We have our members put together a haves and a wants. Members can comment in the thread if they're looking for something, and then the members just answer back to them. There's also announcements, and members can post their schedules in the thread as well. And then we do drawings and incentives, so it allows kind of those affiliate members to kind of get in the action as well and kind of give the members something during this time. If you're an agent that is posting something, we ask you to keep your pitch to 2 minutes, and we make sure that they keep all that important information in that 2-minute pitch, so that they're including the address, the price, incentives, what HOA they're in. And again, we encourage the other people who are watching the Facebook group feed to interact with that person while they are giving their 2-minute pitch.
Thank you. All right, so I think we are right at our time. If we just, we're going to then go ahead and move into our virtual roundtable rooms. Before I jump there, I want to tell you, we do have our resource page. I mentioned that earlier. This is where the recording will be. Plus, we're doing the summary notes of the conversation. And so you can go there and get the previous resources. We've also started assembling links to what all the different members, CMLS members are doing. If you want to look at stuff, see what's been posted, what are the landing pages that other MLSs have done, it is all there. We're trying to collect that. And then if you have ideas or questions, thoughts for additional topics for webinars, please either email those to me. You can do it at ceo@councilofmls.org or info@ or any email you have to CMLS if you send it to us. We just want to know what's of concern, what do you want answers to. And then the other thing I want to remind you, we do have our forums. If you log into your CMLS membership account, we've already have a few topics set up in there for you to go in and discuss, get answers, share, and learn from each other. And then the next one, the CMLS team has been working very hard. One of our biggest things we hear is members wanting to stay connected, learn from each other, and share. So we've come up with these virtual roundtables that we've had excellent feedback. My favorite quote was, "I feel like I just had a really great therapy session." So people saying that, like, just to hear that other people are going through the same types of things, sharing ideas, bouncing ideas. It's just been really great. I've enjoyed them each week. So with that, I would say thank you very much to my panelists. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insight. Good stuff. And then I'll give it just a second here for those of you that want to stay on and go into the roundtables. And you don't have to just talk about virtual showings or open houses. It's open to, the conversations can be whatever is most interesting or concerning for you for today. So we will be here again next week, next Friday again, 10 o'clock Pacific time. which makes it 1 o'clock Eastern time. And I think that is all. Thank you all so much. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. And I'm sure I'll see a couple of you in the breakout rooms. Thank you.